Hello everyone and welcome to this special video once again with the results of the latest regional that took place in Anaheim, California. Now, a lot of expectation going into the regional and uncertainty as well, because of the fact that Sun and Moon was legal the day before, so there hadn't been any big tournaments with the set available, which meant that you had no clue what sort of metagame shift we would see towards the tournament. What we did see was everybody fell back, or most everybody rather, fell back onto like very safe plays. Darkrai Giratina won the event. Kenny Britton won the event with Darkrai Giratina, and I mean, this exact same thing happened back in Orlando for the first regional as we approached a new format, a new metagame. It's pretty ironic that the same decks did well. That regional was won by Yveltal, but we did see Yveltal have a decent presence as well. So Sun and Moon definitely overrated, I would say, as a whole set. As we can see in our screen, the winner didn't end up using a single Sun and Moon card in his deck list. Second place did feature a Kukui and a Lily, which he then said were not that useful throughout the tournament. Brand new decks, we saw Solgaleo Lurantis, piloted by Drew Kennett, and which I did analyze on Wednesday. If you want to see that video, it's just a few days back in the video section. We did see the Lapras Water Toolbox without Shaman get a top 32 spot, but it didn't do too much afterwards. And we did see Espeon get included into the Mega Mewtwo's. I myself played the Espeon as well, and I faced Kenny, the eventual winner of the tournament. But even with Espeon, Giratina was just too much for me to deal with. In both games, I was very close to winning, but I couldn't deal with Giratina early enough, or well enough rather. So yeah, I mean, Kenny's list does include the Tablemon EX, doesn't include any Garbodor, which is, some would think, a bold play, but the fact that Greninja is nowhere is probably not going to appear anytime soon due to the new grass decks that, I mean, even though they didn't see a lot of play, they still had a presence, and John Kettler made top 32 as well with that TCG Vileplume Tauros Lugia deck. So the fact that there's more grass presence, the fact that Mega Mewtwo came back is pretty important. Although with the metagame we did see, there's room for Mega Garbodor EX, like the dual type, to make a comeback, and therefore Greninja has a pretty good matchup against that deck. So we might see a similar cycle as we did in the before Sun and Moon was released, and like between the period between Worlds and Sun and Moon. We might see something like that. But I guess Australia will tell us more about how the standard format will adjust and shape up, because that's the next big standard tournament happening. The next regional is expanded, so it'll be interesting to see if Sun and Moon makes any bigger impact in expanded. Of course, Tide Toad TCG is the deck that's on everyone's minds. If you saw the tier list of Japan, you might have seen that being in like first place or considered a tier 1 deck. It is a different format, but it's XY on instead of black and white on. Difficult to say. But yeah, let's focus on the results of this regional. Kenny Britton won with the list you're seeing in your screen, and it's pretty much 100% consistency. High escape rope count was very useful for him, along with the Olympia. That meant even though he has high retreat cost Pokemon and no float stones, his Pokemon would not get stock active at any point in the game. He went with the Turbo Dark strategy mixed in with the extra power or firepower that the double dragons and the dragons bring to the deck, and the fact that Mega Mewtwo and Mega Ray had a big presence did mean that Giratina was very useful. Also, Giratina pretty much auto wins the Vespiquen matchup, so that's pretty good as well for them. I mean, for this kind of deck. And Kenny did face Rahul in the top 8 in the top 8 match, so that was a pretty. I mean, I'm sure he was very happy to see that matchup play out, because with Giratina you prevent the DCs and it's pretty much game over once you attack once. And yeah, I mean, Salamence EX is also a pretty decent surprise. It's sometimes hard to surprise your opponent, but if you manage to lock the Parallel City before and maybe lock yourself into 3 benched Pokemon instead of them, that way they won't be able to remove the benched Pokemon off of their field like the EX ones, like Shaman and Hoopa, and therefore Salamence can potentially deal a lot of damage. I know when I was facing Volcanion using my Mega Mewtwo list, I would comfortably just use Hoopa and play out, like, even have 5 to 6 EXs at any given point in the game, probably 5. But then with my own Parallel City, I would limit my bench, discard the other 2, and therefore Salamence EX would become not useless, but it wouldn't net one-hit KOs against my Mega Mewtwo's. 3 Darkrai, I'm guessing, like Turbo Darkrai always wants 4 Darkrai EX because that's the main focus of the deck, but here you have the versatility of Salamence and Giratina's additional attackers, so you don't need the 4. The Oblivion Ring Yveltal is really good to recover in the mid game, or get off when you're off to a slow start, or you have to discard a ton of resources of an early Sycamore. You can use the baby Yveltal to recover off of that. And the rest is consistency. Healing options with both Center Lady and Olympia. You have the 4 Elixirs, the 4 Ultra Ball for Verseeker, the 4-3-2 supporter line, which everybody's using by now. 2 Experience Share to guarantee you keep your energy. 2 Fighting Fury Belt to ensure that your Pokemon have maximum HP possible. And Hoopa to search for whatever attacker you need. So, I mean, consistency wins games and wins tournaments. I have a lot of friends and a lot of people keep asking me, and should I tech for this, should I tech for that? And I guess in a more local metagame that makes sense, but when you're going up against a potential 500 other players and you have no idea, other than the fact that California has a reputation for being big on dark decks, there's really not too much you can do to compensate for that, I think. So it's better to use a deck you know well, and one that's consistent, rather than end up taking out for a certain specific matchup which you might not even face anyways. So this is Kenny Britton's first place list. Huge congratulations to him. Like I mentioned, I did play him in the 7th round, the crucial 7th round, which since he beat me, he was at 6 wins, 1 loss, and he pretty much guaranteed top 32 at that point. They were very close games. He beat me 2-0, but they were very, very close games, and it came down to me not having a solid answer to Giratina. Game 1, I couldn't find my Espeon or my Trubbish, since one Trubbish was priced, and Game 2, I got Espeon out, but I never was able to find the 3rd Psychic Energy I needed to KO the Giratina. So despite having a super charge of Mewtwo, I was just one-hit KOing Darkrai's left and back. I was never able to get past the Giratina EX. So yeah, that's Kenny Britton's list. Pure consistency, which I absolutely love. Like I said, a lot of people they want to play this and that, and what if you play X card for X matchup, but consistency wins tournaments. And even though results keep speaking for themselves, people just I don't know, it's something difficult for a lot of people to grasp, I think. The second place list is another super consistent deck. It's actually Turbo Darkrai. I know both Kenny Britton and Tony Lopez, I think, is the person who got 2nd place, have done video reports. If you guys want to see those and find out more about what they did in the final, what happened and everything, I haven't watched those videos yet, but I'm going to guess the advantage that Kenny had with the double dragon energies and the potential use of Salamence was what gave him the win in the end. I know game 3 played out something to like a deck out of some sorts. I'm not entirely sure, but I'm gonna guess that was the differential, the double dragon energy, just giving an extra boost to Kenny's Darkrai's. Tony's list though is super consistent as well, and it's the only deck, or one of the only decks, that included Sun and Moon cards, but even himself, he mentioned that they weren't really too useful. He's using one copy of Kukui and one copy of Lily. Now, I personally don't like Lily, because I think I've mentioned this a few times in my videos, but the only time you want Lily over Sycamore is on turn 1. That's the only time, and even then it could be like suspect if you really want it. But therefore, if you want Lily on turn 1, you need to play a high count of Lily. But after turn 1, like even if you play 4 and you don't hit it, which might happen, then it becomes an inferior supporter to both N and Sycamore. So I personally don't like Lily. Maybe as the season advances I'll change my mind, but as of right now I do really like Kukui, but I really don't like Lily. He did use other tech supporters besides those two. He has a Hex Maniac and a Team Flare Grunt, which is very interesting. The combination of Team Flare Grunt plus Enhanced Hammer is really strong. Neither of these guys had access to a GX attack, interestingly enough, and yeah, besides that, it's pretty much consistency. I mean, he does run 2 Silent Lab instead of 2 Parallel City, like a 2 Silent Lab, 1 Parallel City. Silent Lab is really good in the current format, stopping Shaman and potentially Hoopa from your opponents, and also it's really good against Vespiquen because they have so many abilities on turn 1, like the Unknowns, the Klefkis, even Oranguru gets stopped by Silent Lab, so pretty nice addition there. And aside from that, it's standard, the usual energy count, the usual Darkrai count, the usual Yveltal count, the 1 Hoopa, 2 Shaman, the 4 Elixir, 4 Ultra Ball, 4 Berserker, 3 Mail, 3 Escape Rope, which is obviously really good. And I mean, both decks are super consistent, no crazy decks, no out of the norm cards. Even Lily and Kukui, which are original or different one-offs, they add consistency to the deck, or they give it versatility without sacrificing consistency, and that's always good. Like, the more versatile your deck is, obviously the better, because you can adjust to different situations and deal with your opponent's different strategies better. But sometimes you have to sacrifice consistency in order to deal with a certain strategy or whatever. But using different supporters to give you different options throughout your turn, especially thanks to Berserker, is never a bad thing. If you've got the consistency covered with the 4 Sycamore and 2 N and 2 Lysander, then even though he's not running 3N, he does have Kukui, which does draw you cards and gives you the extra damage to hit those numbers. And you do have Lily, which can maybe be like an N. Even late game, Lily could even be better sometimes than drawing the N. So yeah, there's justification for using them. And they're nothing crazy, and they're potentially useful in every match. That's important, because if you have some dead cards in your deck for some matchups, and that's really bad, because you might dead draw just because of those cards against a certain matchup. But if you have cards that give you versatility against everything, those are really good cards to consider including in your deck. So that was the 2 finalist decks, the champion and second place. Now, third place and fourth place were Mega Mewtwo and another Turbo Dark. The Mega Mewtwo didn't include Espeon GX, so that's why I'm not showcasing it right now, but huge props to Ryan. Ryan, is it? Yeah, Ryan Sablehouse. He's been pretty consistent. He did well at Orlando. He did well once again in Anaheim, and I'm sure we'll be seeing more of him in the future. Really good player and really old school player, I think. And then we have the 5th place deck by Igor Costa. Igor has been really consistent as well. There was some recent drama involving him, but I don't pay too much attention to that. I mean, I don't know. I'm not even going to get into that. I'll just talk about the list. He gave up on Mewtwo, and well, he still played a Mewtwo in his deck, I guess. but he went for an Yveltal build, which I really like. The 4 Yveltal EX is crucial, like it's the same logic with the Turbo Darkrai. It is your main attacker, and there might be situations where you have one or maybe even two priced. Maybe you have one priced and the first one gets damaged early on or something like that, so having access to 4 is really important. And with the Ninja Boy that he did include in his deck, he has the standard 4-3-2 supporter line with one Ninja Boy. He gets access to a Ninja Boy Taurus combo, so in a game 1, if you don't know your opponent is playing this, you might be really surprised. And also, even if you know they play it, like you don't know if they'll have access to it or not, so you have to take a lot more calculated risks, assuming or knowing whether, or not assuming, guessing if they will have the Ninja Boy into Taurus or not. And you also need to know, or knowing how many Taurus they play is really important, because if the Taurus is on their bench and they only play one, then you know they won't be able to Ninja Boy into it or into a different one. But if you don't know and you might suspect they play 2 or something, you might try to be a little bit more cautious. A single Fright Knight, which I think I would have loved to see him play 2, simply because they're really good against Mega decks, but instead of playing 2, he played a regular Mewtwo, which is actually really good for the Mewtwo matchup. So he didn't have a direct or a soft counter to the Spirit Links in a second Fright Night Yveltal, but he had a direct counter to the highly expected Mega Mewtwo deck that ended up being played. So pretty nice addition there, pretty nice tech. I don't know how well or not it worked out for him. You'd have to ask him, but it makes sense, and there was so much Mewtwo that I'm sure it paid dividends. And then he has his usual 2-1 Garbodor line, which I do understand the reasoning behind that. In Mega Mewtwo he played this line, but along with a Hex Maniac, because you do have to deal with Giratina. But because Giratina doesn't stop Yveltal EX, a 2-1 line is okay. Even if you're up against Greninja, which there was very little of Greninja in the tournament, and you're not able to get the Garbodor out early, or if it's prized, you put a lot of pressure on Greninja, and you will probably take between 2 to 3 prizes by the time Greninja is ready to start doing anything. So you have okay odds in hitting the Garbodor off of your prizes by that point. And Garbodor, like I said, is nice, but it's not too crucial anymore because Greninja is not as popular. If Gardevoir picks up in popularity and therefore Greninja makes a comeback, we might see thicker Garbodor lines make a comeback as well. And aside from that, it's consistency. Igor chose to go for the 2 Enhanced Hammer, just like Azul did back in Orlando. He had to sacrifice, I'm guessing, a Trainer's Mail. He's only playing 2 for that, but I understand the reasoning behind the two Enhanced Hammer. 4 Elixir, 4 Ultra Ball, 4 Vespiquen, 2 Parallel CD, 3 Floatstone. It's all pretty standard stuff, nothing out of the ordinary. And he did give himself options with a Ninja Boy into Mewtwo, into the Fright Night Yveltal, or into Taurus. So I really like this list. Next we have Rahul's from the Chaos Gym. You should definitely check out his report. It's pretty entertaining. That one I did see by now. He lost Vespiquen, and Vespiquen has been getting stronger as the season has progressed, I would say. It keeps showing up to tournaments, not in the early season, but it is now. Rahul did fall to Kenny's Giratinas, which was really unfortunate for him, because I think he had a really good matchup against everything else. Or not a good matchup, but at least a decent fighting chance. The Mew EX is pretty huge for the Mewtwo match, because even though they do have Garb, getting a first turn KO or a second turn KO with Mew EX is not something out of the ordinary for this deck, and in his report he talks about pulling that off quite a few times. So the Mew EX inclusion is really nice. He also has Taurus, which he can just promote and set up behind that in a longer game. he chose Zoroark instead of Substrika, which makes sense. Zoroark does punish the kind of the Mega Garbodor decks, but especially the Mega Rayquaza decks, and combined with Jolteon, it's a really good secondary attacker. Rahul did run one Jolteon and one Vaporeon with 2 EVs. He didn't use that EV though, he used the other one, but that doesn't really make too big a difference. But transforming the Vespiquens and the Zoroarks into water type helps deal with the Volcanion matchup, and with into electric. I mean, it's not necessary for Shaman because you probably KO that anyways very easily because of the low HP, but hitting the numbers easier against Yveltal and potentially Mega Rayquaza, I'm sure was really good. Depending on the metagame, like you could run a Flareon instead of the Jolteon, just in case you expect like a lot of Lurantis or a lot of Decidueye or something like that. So it's definitely a modifiable spot. You could also play all 3, like one of each. You could go double Vaporeon if you expect purely Volcanion and don't think you need the Jolteon for the Yveltals. There's definitely wiggle room there. And the Oranguru is really nice in this deck because once you bench it, one of Vespiquen's biggest problems, I think, or the reason it might lose sometimes, is because a late game N might simply not allow you to find the last TCG you need, or the Revitalizer to get that Vespiquen going or something like that. So Oranguru makes you pretty fail safe against N, against any opponent that doesn't set up Garbodor or doesn't use Garbodor. So pretty nice inclusion of the Oranguru, and if Garbodor is in play, you can just discard it and it's extra Pokemon for your Pokemon count. Known for consistency, took left key mostly for discard, but with so many Mega decks, especially Mega Mewtwo, I'm sure they came in handy at different points in the game. And the rest is consistency as well. 4 Acrobike, 4 Sycamore, 2 N, 2 Lysander. The lower end count, and by lower I mean from 3 to 2, is definitely compensated by the extra Shaman, by the Unknowns, by the Acrobikes, and the Oranguru. 2 Forest of Giant Plants. You don't need a huge bench, so you don't need Skyfield. You don't want to parallel city yourself into a smaller bench, maybe sometimes to get extra Pokemon in the discard pile, but very rarely. And you don't want to reduce your damage output, and you want to have a counter to your opponent's parallel city itself. So Forest of Giant Plants makes sense here. And 2 Floatstone because it's a very good combo with Zoroark, and it also combos well with the Taurus. So yeah, huge props to him for sticking with his favorite deck, I would say, and doing so well with it. Next up, we have the Mega Mewtwo list used by Travis non-list. Now this list is, I believe, it's 2 cards off of what I used at Anaheim. So I think I made a really good choice for the tournament. I was just really unlucky to go up against Kenny and not be able to find my answers for Giratina in time. And then in the 8th round, I faced Drew with the Lurantis Galio deck when I had a Volcanion Mega Ray to my right and a Volcanion Yveltal to my left. So any of those decks, I would have been very happy to face off, and it would have maybe allowed me to move on to day 2. But yeah, against this deck, just outright loses to Solgaleo Lurantis. But anyways, Travis did pretty well with this. We do see the 1/1 Espeon tech line. It's really good with the with the Energy Evolution EV because of the fact that you can immediately evolve into the Espeon. It's really good in Mirror because it's a low 1 energy attacker dealing 60 damage, and Confusion can come in really handy, especially in the Mirror, where the only form of switching out you use, or the only way you can get out of Confusion, is by retreating, and you only play Floatstone. So the Mega Mewtwo's will most likely have the Spirit Links, and therefore you probably either make them retreat and waste their energy, or you force them to flip, and they probably won't have enough energy to KO the Espeon GX anyways. So I don't think Espeon GX is super necessary for Mewtwo, but if you're not playing it and you're up against a mirror match that is playing it, you're pretty much on the losing side from the beginning. 4-3 Mewtwo line, 2-1 Garb, and 2-1 Shaman Hoopa. all pretty much standard at this point. 4 Mega Turbo, 4 Ultra Ball, 4 Vespiquen, 2 Trainer's Mail. This is where there's one card that is different. I played 3 Mega Turbo and 3 Trainer's Mail, and that was like a last minute call in the morning. None of my teammates agreed with doing that, but I felt okay with my choice right there. And the other change I used was I had a 3-3 line of Mega Mewtwo instead of a 4-3, and I had 2 parallel, and I want to say that 2 parallel probably won me at least half the games I played. If I ever do run Mega Mewtwo once again in a tournament, I'm definitely sticking with the 2 parallel to Shrine of Memories, because both stadiums are really good. But Travis did go with a single parallel and the 4-3 Mewtwo line. 4-3-2 supporters we are used to by now, 3 Floatstone, 4 Spirit Links, which are very crucial because that's the one card you want to draw really early on, and 11 Energy is just the bare minimum you can run in this deck. You can maybe make an argument for 4 DC and 6 Psychic, but with the Espeon, I feel like the more Psychics you have, the better. And yeah, I mean, with an unknown metagame, all of the decks I just reviewed, or I just showcased right here, are all pretty safe choices. They have good matchups across the board. None of them have any clear auto losses. I guess Mewtwo has the Mega Garbodor auto loss, but that was definitely, I mean, seeing the results of Athens and things like that, it was definitely a deck that was not in favor of many of the players going to Anaheim, at least not the ones that you'd have to worry about. And Vespiquen is just solid overall. It can definitely take games off of anything that doesn't run Giratina, and most definitely everybody expected Turbo Darkrai rather than Darkrai Dragons. So huge props to Kenny for winning. He was the only Darkrai Dragons, I believe, in top 32, and he ended up winning the event, so that might make people reconsider that version of the deck over the Turbo Dark, depending on their local metagame. And yeah, I mean, moving into Australia, which is the next big tournament, like I mentioned, Fairy, any sort of Fairy deck is really well positioned to do well. Mega Garbodor, I want to say, is in a good position to do well because it deals with Mega Mewtwo. It probably deals well with the Turbo Darks, or rather it might tie, or it might be an even match against Turbo Dark, in fact. But with enough healing, and if you can counter the early Silent Lab, you should be okay, I think. So maybe Mega Garbodor is a solid choice for the next tournament. As long as you don't walk into a Ninja Boy Taurus attack or a Mad Bull GX attack, you're probably going to be okay. And maybe Pancakes could see a resurgence. Maybe Rainbow Road. Now, although no, Rainbow Road is just way too inconsistent. I personally don't like Rainbow Road, and I'm pretty sure I will never play Rainbow Road at a tournament. You just need too many pieces for it to work, and it has too many easy counters in Parallel City and Garbodor. So yeah, I mean, that was Anaheim Regionals. Everybody, or almost everybody, went back to safe choices. If you want to see more of the Lurantis Solgaleo deck, definitely check out Wednesday's video where I play against another YouTuber. In fact, I play against a Spanish channel, Gaia Storm, in a really good game with Lurantis Solgaleo against Yveltal. Probably very similar to Igor's list. And what else? I'll try to bring John Kettler's TCG deck for TCG Yveltal for like in the near future, but I think I want to feature 2 weeks of Expanded now on the road to Collinsfield Regionals. I want to feature the TCG Seismitoad, and because that's the next tournament that's on everyone's mind. I mean, if you're not going there, you definitely still want to test Standard, but if you're going to Collinsfield, you might want to get a little bit of an idea of Expanded, or maybe some of the preview of how the decks might get adapted or something. I'm definitely not the best player at Expanded. I've never played in an Expanded tournament other than the League Cup in London, which I improvised a Trevenant deck. because that's the only deck I could get the cards for. I've never played an expanded tournament, so next week's videos will probably feature a ton of misplays, more than the usual. but I'll try to make it interesting, because I know a lot of people are going to St. Louis, and I'm sure there will be enough interest on that particular metagame. So that will be all from me today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this special, as always. Please leave a like on the video if you can, it really helps out. Try to make it a little bit shorter this time. Half an hour seems an ideal number, because it's only me talking instead of showcasing you any action on the screen. And yeah, that'll be all. Thank you guys, and see you on Monday. Bye bye.